Welcome everyone. Resilient leadership. We will talk what exactly has been meant by resilient leadership in today's presentation. So, basically, what does we understand with the word called resilience? And can we cultivate it? Can we build resilience? Can we uh, insulate ourselves no matter what with respect to any situation, any person? So, how does resilience actually impact? How do we go ahead with resilience? So let us understand with it. We all understand today's world is a VUCA world. In fact, all businesses are basically working in a VUCA environment. V stand for volatility, U for uncertainty, as the case might be. Let us understand. Yes, what stands true for today might not be the truth tomorrow. We are in a transitory phase. Everything has been changing. Newer product has been launched every day. Services have been launched or probably uh, probably they have been manicured and given a redefined a new versions altogether. So things are changing on a day-to-day basis as far as business environment is concerned. We have been flummoxed. In fact, we have been flooded with a lot of offers, lot of product and lot of services which may be identical to one another but with minor changes, and things are getting customized, in fact, in all spheres of life. What that does it mean? It means the environment is very volatile. It is also very uncertain. We cannot, as I say, since the environment is volatile, we cannot predict the futures. In fact, what is stored in future will not able to gauge it beyond a certain point of event. So it is uncertainty. Yes, volatility, uncertainty. Next, about VUCA would be complexity. Life has become complex. We are seeing complexity in our relationship, in the way things have been working, in the way the rules and regulations are being changed. In fact, the complexity in doing business has become so complicated that nowadays it is being customized from individual to individuals, and no two orders services are identical in nature. So yes, the person, the organization who can manage this complex environment will be the eventual winner. And the last but not the least, despite being so complex, the last A of VUCA would be ambiguous. This is where we are confused as to what can be slotted or can it be categorized, be it the product, be it the customer, be it the client, be it the services. So everything is becoming very ambiguous, very hazy, and probably we are not able to pinpoint exactly the reasons for it. And that is the challenges in today's leaderships of the organization. VUCA is something which we need to mitigate, which we need to manage, and probably go ahead with it. So, world is becoming exceedingly turbulent, much more faster, much more quicker, and most organizations are becoming more and more resilient. In fact, if an organization is no more resilient, it ceases to exist, and that is the reason which I wanted to present you the resilient agenda. What would be the agenda of this particular presentation? It will be a simple productions or introduction to resilient model, definitely yes. Or how can we imbibe the resilience in a leader, or probably things like that. So that is what we are looking forward to. Share two core principles from resilient leadership model: non-anxious presence, reactivity, and triangle. Explore new ways of thinking about your journey towards cultivating greater resilience, as to how we can process with it. Illustrate the use of resilient leadership concepts in leadership coaching, as the case might be. That is what we are looking forward. Now, let us understand resilient leadership. Resilient leadership is basically nothing but probably seeing, thinking, and leading in a all new fashion, seeing things in a different perspective, thinking it from a different angle, and probably leading with difference in goals that helps leader to navigate the hidden dynamics of organization much more effectively. So essentially, leaders would be the person who are leading with calms and clarity, but with conviction, as the case might be. This is what which is very important. Resilient leaders are not only calm, but they have clarity about their process. With conviction, they proceeds altogether in this exceedingly VUCA environment, which signifies extreme volatility, extreme ambiguous, extreme complexity, and extreme uncertainty. Such individuals lead from strength, know how to care for themselves, both emotionally and spiritually. And definitely, one has to keep themselves physically active. The new way of resilient leadership. Did I say about seeing, thinking, and leading? Let us understand what do we look for in seeing as to emotional process, both in terms of yourself and others, as in automatic functioning things. So seeing what is been seen and emotionally with your own eyes about others' perspective, about the forces, about the automatic functioning that is happening on a day-to-day basis, which runs without any impetus. Thinking a new think system, thinking on a different alignment. We'll talk about the triangles as the case might be, the presence of the past glories, if I may so. This is good, but what about the past haunting effect that comes around it? The past thing which are not very rosy, not very glorious. So are we thinking the presence as a reflection of the past glories or past uh, miracles or past detrimental things that have impacted altogether. So, what are we looking into it? Then comes leading, focusing on differentiation of self, leading with conviction and staying connected at the same time. Now, let me give you a different perspective, the perspective of an iceberg, which I am very fond of it as giving. Now, if you look into it, your anxiety levels are of either it can be because induced from somebody else, which is reactive in nature, or probably it is ingrained in you, as in chronic anxiety. Now, this is my emotional system, is all about it. Now, what is the rational system? Is where the truth and the fiction, the imagination comes around it. The anxiety meets, and that is what the rational system around out here. Somewhat we can see, somewhat we cannot see. In reactivity, you can see because it has been imbibed or induced by somebody else, a third party, the anxiety in us. There are chronic anxiety, probably which is of past hauntings, which is actually having a catastrophic effect on my thought process. So, new way of seeing things altogether. Automatic functioning, people will talk about it. Reactivity is the public face of anxiety. Believe me or not, reactivity, again I state, is a public face of anxiety. Anxiety gives rises to reactivity, the response of a whole person to be perceived as a threat. Now we'll talk about automatic functioning of reactivity. Our brain is wired for survival. Do I eat it or does it eat me? It is the demon lies in your brain itself. It is your thought process which is going to be a impediment for your growth, for your success. But how often are we hijacking our amygdala? Amygdala is the frontal cortex of your brain through which we think around it, and that is what needs to be taken care of. Let us understand the reactivity reflection. Think back at a time when you were triggered or probably provoked by someone or something. A time when you reacted in a way which was automatic, almost a knee-jerk reaction, are emotional driven rather than being thoughtful. So you need to understand where you didn't think about it as far as reaction is coming. Now, this reaction can be ecstatic, can be dreadful, depending upon the inducement that comes around it. Use the following question, the question that I'm giving you to you, to probably understand your thought process and will give and analyze the insights about it. Why did this? Question number one is, why did this particular incident provoke you? With fears, emotion, anxiety did survive. What was those fears? Exactly, think about it. And I'm sure many of you will come up with different responses. And there are n numbers of incidents where we have given a knee-jerk reaction. My second question is, where did you feel the reaction in your body? Were you perspiring? Were the headache? Was your heart beating on a high rate? Was it a stomach on your note, your jaw tense, your breath, your beans rapid or slow? Last question to you to understand the objectivity. How did you react in the face of trigger? What did you say or do, and how did this impact you and those around you? Did your relationship improve because of that reaction, or did it deteriorate? Answer this simple question, and you will be able to understand what is the reactivity reflection that comes around it. Let me proceed with behavioral science. Now, this is a behavioral science that comes around it and probably needs to be taken care of a lot more time. Let's say seeking a lot of feedback is probably resisting hearing altogether. Absolutely. So people might be seeking a lot of soliciting a lot of feedback, and there are people who must be actually hating any sort of feedback, seeking a lot to contact, try to with. So probably, and there are people who would like to withdraw altogether, making everyone happy, probably, or when you're making everyone happy, you are in the process of complying to everyone request, or should I say, you bloody, it's your way or it's the highway. You are imposing your own will and nobody else. There are other reasons. Behavioral anxiety. Let's say make a snap decision. Now, this is a snap decision, is immediate knee-jerk decision that to take place vis-a-vis a person or incident where you do not want to take a decision. In fact, every time the decision comes around, the decision moment comes up upon, you try to postpone decisions altogether. Next would be changing course abruptly, probably as on when on basis, whenever you feel like you change your courses. And then there are moments where you resist changing at all, absolutely resist changing everything. Try to appease people, probably trying to appease people and none probably blowing them apart altogether, ignoring a problem or exaggerating a problem, micromanaging, probably disappearing, stir up conflicts, trifle conflict, as the case might be. So, what triggers your client's reactivity? Number one, the threats. Basically, if those questions that I've already tried to arise you, if you have not answered it, I'm trying to answer it myself to you. What triggers your reactivity? First, it is somebody is usurping your status, absolutely removing you from your status or diminishing you from your status. It is to be considered a threat. There is something called certainty, regularity, permanence. If somebody is putting an impediment towards it, barriers towards that certainty, it's a threat. If somebody is blocking the autonomy, it's a threat. If there are probably client reactivity in terms of relatedness, again a threat. It's if it in cases a question of fairness, if you feel that you have been treated unfairly, it's a threat. So this is what triggers your client reactivity. Now, common. Now, let me translate into a workplace trigger. First is the major concern would be a boss's bad mood. Definitely, it's a threat altogether. Probably you lose a key client, you lose a business amount of a business that goes around it. It is a performance which has been impacted. Negative comment by a colleague is what we look into it. Then comes the budget controls or budget cuts. Being left out in the loop is again one point which people do not like, take it very kindly. Colleagues who don't come through, what else, and so on and so forth. This is what we are looking forward to it. So, if these are the trigger point in your workplace, what are the reactivity in the workplace? Let's take a look. Taking signs and forming cliques, or probably forming groups or teams about it. And that is what reactivity is all about. It is all about turf battle, feuding, backstabbing, probably hoarding resources and complaining and doing detrimental things, all about turf battle. Probably you might be blaming someone, scapegoating someone, chronic overwork, mixed message from the leadership, people not saying what they think, distancing, people hiding in their offices, and heavy turnover is what we comes across as the reactivity per se. Let me present you a way of seeing things in a new fashion. When Brazilian leaders can reactive functioning themselves, they are able to manage themselves and others more effectively. So a resilient leader should see reactive functioning. When you find people are reacting without any thought, without any rhymes, without any reasons, the resilient leader can actually see it through and probably manage it even better in a much better fashion. So, how do we go around it? Let us understand a leader to be coached around in a step by step process as far handling such situations are concerned. Let's say, gi- take a distant view. In fact, I would recommend take a balcony view, have an eagle's eye approach altogether. Work on adapting an attitude of curiosity by observing, by listening, rather than by reacting quickly. And this is one thing which I always like to say to my audiences: do not give a knee-jerk reaction. You have to give a reaction, plan it out, think it out. Take moments, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 2 days time before reacting. Buddy is asking you not to react, but do not, I repeat, do not react on an immediate basis. Ask questions to gain perspective, deepen understanding. Try to reframe the situation. Focus on facts, refrain from judgment, gossip. Use playfulness to lessen tension in self and probably in others. Stay focused in the I position as to why it happened. If you were in that position, how do you go about it? Stay present. And the authors have said, and I still go before giving a reaction, take this 6 second vacation, and this will allow your mind to cool off a lot better. Let me give you a different perspective before I wind up this particular presentation as far as resilient leadership. You know what you see in this picture? There are two ladies and one gentleman, right? And I am talking of new way of thinking in terms of triangles. I love this approach. Believe me or not, this will bring a new change, new dynamics if you can implement such an approach out here. In fact, we have been implementing consciously or unconsciously. Let me introduce yourself to this triangle approach as thinking process. A triangle is a triad between three people, unconsciously formed at a lower stress that's experienced between two people. So there are two people, and then you bring in the third party, or there is this one party, and then you become the another party, third party. So triangle can usually involves two people and an unresolved issues or conflict. Let me bring it to you in a much vibrant fashion. You know what happens is there's a boss and there's a co-worker. So the co-worker and a boss is having a problem. So how do we go around it? How does the co-worker come? Because this is a hierarchical issues, and probably they cannot co-worker cannot risk his or her job. So what does the coworker do? He or she aligns with another coworker, and that is what the triangle part comes around it. Now, when there are two coworkers, if they can make it, they can understand each other's and probably understand their perspective. They can probably talk to the boss together to resolve any shortcomings or issues or understanding or whatever the priorities are all about it. And this is what a triangle is all about it. Now, I'll give you a common workplace triangles. Now, there have been three categories. The anxious persons, basically, if an anxious person is manager, probably is challenged by an employee, probably, or an employee may be challenged by a boss, or a sales group is being challenged by an engineer, or a team member is being challenged by another team member. So, what happens? How does it happen? Then you have to understand the third the triangle comes in. The whoever has been challenged by will go with another employee. A boss will always turn to his or her spouse. An engineer will again turn to the chief operating officers or a higher killer. Another team member might translate into the managers. You wherein the manager will complain or put in a request for change. An underperformer will look to the coach. A board member will talk to a peer, and so on and so forth. These are the common workplace triangle that comes around us. Efforts to change the other side of the triangle generally exactly produces the opposite effect and leave you with the stress. So let us understand a boss with a direct report, as I've been trying to getting yourself triangled at times. So effort to change the other side of the triangle generally produce the opposite effect and leave you with the stress, as the case may. A better strategy is this, where you talk it out probably as a direct report, probably when you want to speak and resolve the issues uh, confidentially, cooperatively, the way you want to go it, resolve it at the same time. So application conversion, identify a client who is engaged in a triangle, find a partner, absolutely. No matter how toxic or how healthy your client's triangle is all about it, how might you use the concept of triangle to enrich your coaching. Now, if you have a partners in the coaching part, in the triangle part, it half of your job is done. It becomes much easier, if not half of the job. So coaching a leaders with triangles. Remember, this is my last slide for the day. So going by it, work to improve your existing triangle with which you are involved by opening up direct lines of communication with others in the triangles and by withdrawing from any efforts to influence the relationship between the other two people. Or better, watch the emergence of a negative triangle. See what happens. If it is a negative triangle around in your workplace, coach and others avoid the trap of trying to take actions by influencing the other side of the triangle. So if it is a negative triangle, please avoid those ways to handle it. Think about how triangles might function between whole departments or staff. Consider what steps you could take to improve one of the triangles your department or his team is part of her, and that will resolve a lot of issues. With this, I end up this particular presentations on resilient leadership. I'm sure you must have understood how to mitigate situation in times of difficulties and in this VUCA world, or should I say volatility, uncertainty, complex and ambiguous environment. Thank you for watching this video.